What is the dumbest idea you have ever had that actually worked?
Hello.
Welcome.
Alright, let's go.
Real estate told me I had to have the carpets professionally cleaned. Wasn't in the contract or I'd lose my $800 bond. I did some research and found out I could become an accredited carpet cleaner as there are no official licensing boards in my state. So, I did what any sane person would do. I paid the $85, did the online course and got my certificate. Registered a business name, app, etc., all free. Handed the property management a copy of my accreditation and an invoice for services. I became a professional carpet cleaner and launched a vacate cleaning business that is still going 6 months later.
Far from the dumbest working idea in the thread, but I once got an extra day to work on a video project in high school. By coming to class with a video that was just a quarter second of blackness, eagerly volunteering to go first, then acting confused and scared when the file didn't work. The teacher took pity on me and told me to just bring it the following day, and I got to finish it that evening and still got full credit, as if I did it on time.
I once completely blanked on an essay assignment and didn't realize till I was sitting in class. Luckily, the teacher didn't collect the essays till the end of class and I proceeded to write the whole paper in my notebook during lecture. When people were handing in essays, I went up and told the teacher that I forgot to print it, but I had a version in my email, showing him the handwritten one to prove I had completed the assignment. He let me go print it and I typed the whole thing up in like 5 minutes, ran back, handed it in and got like a C or B. Couldn't argue that since I was about to get a 0.
Back in high school, I stopped by one of my teacher's rooms after class to ask him some questions about our homework. When I walked in, I noticed he was grading some of our tests. Of note, all of his tests were made up of multiple choice, true, false, or matching, and all of the answers were bubbled in. What I noticed was that instead of using an answer key to grade, he was just placing a stencil over the paper with the correct bubble punched out. The stencil wasn't transparent, so all it showed was whether we bubbled in the right answer or not. Flash forward to our next test, and I'm stuck on a T-F question. Knowing how he graded, I figured I'd bubble in both T and F, and if he caught it, it would be easy enough to claim it was an accident. Well, he didn't catch it, and I used that trick the rest of the year for a little extra boost on all of his tests.
You just scared me, because that's exactly how the one food handler certification test I took was graded.
Put Jesus in his Wi-Fi password in church. It worked.
Huh. Jesus really is the answer.
In college I was taking a class that required me to purchase an online textbook and workbook that was registered under your name, basically ensuring that each student would have to buy a new online copy each semester instead of buying used textbooks. I had a friend who took this class a semester before me, so we came up with the idea to message customer service and explain that I had recently gotten married, so my last name had changed, and I legally changed my first name from my friend's first name to my first name, and I would need them to change it in their system. It totally worked, and the rep even congratulated me on my marriage.
Back in the flip phone days, I had dropped mine and the screen stopped working. I could make and receive calls, but the screen was just completely blank. I put up with it for a couple of weeks because I couldn't afford a new phone, but one day I had the thought of, well, if dropping the phone made the connection loose, maybe the same thing can fix it, and threw my phone at the ground. I picked it back up and the screen was working.
I used to know a guy who, every week, would order his Saturday night curry for delivery while sitting in the pub and then walk over the road to the curry house and get it and himself delivered home. This went on for about 10-12 weeks. One week, we were sitting having a pint and the owner of the curry house walked in, took his order, and had him picked up from the pub. He said it was easier for everyone concerned.
That's the most British thing I've ever read.
On 4th of July I was in Brooklyn, a neighborhood not too far from my own. Was having a hell of a time catching a cab when suddenly an ice cream truck pulled up. My apartment was right next to an ice cream truck depot. I knew any truck in the area was parking there, so I asked for a ride in what little Spanglish I knew. They obliged. Free ride home plus ice cream cone. Big win. Awkward ride.
Got a really long drill bit stuck in a piece of thick wood, butcher's block. I tried everything I could think of to yank it out. My solution that ended up working for me was attaching the drill bit to a chain, put the chain on my truck, and have a piece of wood kind of stuck between two branches of a tree. I drove off slowly and it popped right out.
Breaking into my own house through the kitchen window using a piece of wire and a wooden table after I was locked out.
I want to hear how the F you did this.
Well, I arrived home with my mom and my little cousin, and we realized we forgot the keys at my grandma's house, way the hell across the city. Mom calls my dad to bring his keys. He was working at the time, and he'd take an hour to arrive, so we'd have to wait outside. I went full hell no mode and kept looking for other ways in. Turned out that one of the tiny back windows was open, but there was a safety pin that kept it from opening all the way up, and the only way to remove it was unscrewing it. So I grabbed a wooden clothespin that was lying there, broke it, removed the wire that kept it together because it was just the right size to unscrew the window pin. I did it, pulled a table underneath the window so I could climb inside, and just like that I managed to successfully break into a house at age 13.
I threw my keys up to my wife. They landed on the roof apartments, so we didn't have a ladder, and it was after hours. It was getting ready to rain, so I took 3 paper clips, a AA battery, and a cord, the rope kind, not like a power cord, taped the 3 paper clips around the battery to make a large 3-pronged fish hook. Then after about 100 attempts to fish my keys off the roof, I finally got a nibble. A good tug pulled them over the storm drain, and the rope was just long enough that the lanyard barely touched the ground. Didn't even break my fob. Smile, edit, Chagned taped the 2 paper clips to tape the 3 paper clips.
This idea could have easily gotten me fired if it went wrong. I was working as art director at an animation studio, making videos for clients. One client was especially pesky about the use of yellow in the background. They wanted it to be that of their logo, which was this horrible neon piss yellow. We advised against it, but after numerous calls we had to cave and gave a version with that color. They hated it, and asked for a change. What followed were 12 versions with numerous calls in between, tweaking the color over and over. Eventually I got tired of it and just sent the original version again. I didn't even bother to rename the file. The client said, "This looks exactly the way I wanted, thank you." How that ever went right, I still have no idea.
In university I was late on an assignment that was supposed to be in my TA's Dropbox by noon that day. I didn't manage to get there until almost 3, so I was sure he had already emptied it. Now, the drop boxes were literal boxes in cubbies with a slot on the front and a lock on them that prevented them from being pulled out. The rack holding them was just a basic metal frame with about 5 rows of boxes. My TA's box was somewhere in the middle of the shelf. So I figured, I'm late anyways, why not take a chance, and slipped my assignment into the box below my TA's box. I got my assignment handed back a few weeks later than everyone else, and it had a note from another TA scribbled on it that said, "Looks like this fell into my box by mistake." I got full marks on the assignment.
Was really desperate to leave past employer after 15 years. Had been applying and interviewing and striking out. Finally got an interview at a place where, at the time, I felt, meh, I am not really sure this is right for me, but anything is better than where I am at. Instead of prepping for the interview, rehearsing answers, etc., I pulled in office space. I was cocky, brash, and concerned, made it seem like I was happy where I was at and didn't really care if I got the job or not. They called me back the next week, and I waited a week to return their call. Same deal with the second interview. When they offered me the job, I hemmed and hawed, said I needed to think about it really hard, and that it was a big move for me, etc., etc. I came back and demanded well over $15,000 above what they were offering in salary. They accepted.
In my senior year of high school, we had to spend our final quarter doing mandatory volunteer work to graduate. I was placed at a head start in my city, and while some of the kids I worked with were great, there was one, Brandon, who was an absolute nightmare. 20 months old, endless energy, no empathy, no speech beyond a few words, and no ability to recognize pain in other children. At nap time, someone always had to be sitting next to his cot, as he would otherwise just get up and run around, sometimes hitting the other sleeping kids if he could get away with it. He would be a spiteful little shit, and repeatedly stick his feet out from under his blanket after you pushed it back in, like it was a game. One day, I got so frustrated trying to get this brat to sleep that I basically just laid him down flat, arms and legs together, and closely tucked his blanket in under him from top to bottom, like a burrito. To my overwhelming joy, he made no attempt to escape and was asleep within 2 minutes. I repeated this tactic over the next few days with the same results. It worked. Brandon would sleep. One of the actual teachers/workers there saw me doing this to him one day, and asked me what I was doing. I explained the process, but she was skeptical until I showed her just how quickly Brandon would chill out. I swear, her face lit up like I had just given her the most life-changing advice ever. Oh my god, /you/Ness, you're right. He actually falls asleep